I'm Makini Smith. After going through a divorce, my sister passing away, experiencing narcissistic abuse, and some significant health scares, I realized through sharing my story that I wasn't alone in my suffering. Suffering, subjective distress generated by the experience of being out of balance. In a deep dive to holistically heal mind, body, and soul is where I discovered peace, clarity, and connection. It is impossible to be truly wise without some real life hardship, and we cannot develop post-traumatic wisdom without making it through, and most importantly, through it together. Social connection builds resilience, and resilience helps create post-traumatic wisdom, and that wisdom leads to hope. Hope for you and others witnessing and participating in your healing, and hope for your community. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. Kishshana Palmer is an international speaker, trainer, and coach with over 20 years background in fundraising, marketing, and talent management who helps leaders create high-performing teams. Kishshana is CEO of Management, Inc., an organizational development firm focused on helping everyday leaders live well and lead well. Her firm's work centers on equity and social justice and practical solutions for today's organizations. She's the founder of The Rooted Collaborative, a global community focused on the growth and development of women leaders of color in the social sector. She's the host of the podcast Management Made Easy, formerly Let's Take This Offline. So please welcome to the show, Kishshana Palmer.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, girl. Listen, so the first time you were on the show was in 2020, and it was July 2020. For those who want to go back and listen to the episode, we had a blast. I mean, although we were talking about you recovering from COVID,
Yes.
The energy of the podcast was hilarious. You're naturally high energy, in my opinion, so you brought the energy and the laughs.
I'm always
So I just want the listeners to know, some episodes we cry. I feel like this one we're going to laugh a lot.
That's true. Sometimes you got to laugh instead of crying, right?
Exactly. That's how we get through it.
That's right. Exactly how we get through it. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and share your healing journey with us. I'm sure there's so much that has evolved over the last 4 years. You and I have a lot of similarities, a lot of alignment. So I'm sure we're going to resonate on a lot of things.
I love it.
So the first question I want to ask before we get to where you are presently is, what is your earliest childhood memory that defines who you are today?
I can't say that one. So, and the reason it's so fresh on my mind is because my daddy's about to be 70. And anybody who's listening who has West Indian parents knows that when the people them get to a certain age and they go, oh, no, I don't want a party. Don't make a fuss.
Yes.
Me and my siblings have been on the group chat for months. Do we do it? Do we not do it? He said not to do it. Do we do it? Do we not do it? Lord. So the reason I'm thinking about that is because The Wiz is having a reprise on Broadway. And in the 5th grade, I was a scarecrow, so the Michael Jackson role in our school production of The Wiz. Now, Makini, I want to tell you, I don't think we learned nothing in 5th grade because my teacher, child, she was a chain smoking artiste who had this 5th grade class. And my parents, although I was in church every Sabbath and sang in the children's choir since I was little, I don't really think they had an idea that I could actually really sing. And so I tried out for this, the play on my own, and I rehearsed, and, they were like, oh yeah, Kishshana's doing something in school. But it wasn't until the opening performance and my whole family came to see what foolishness I've been up to, obviously, that my parents were like blown away. And I was like, I have arrived. It was like, yes, let us do it.
Yeah.
And, I think I was a bit more of a brainiac than would have allowed me to have the confidence to tell my parents declaratively right then and there, this is what I want to do with my life. I still am, I'm oldest in family. I'm the first one to go to college. I'm do all the firsts, right? And so at that time, at the wee age of 10, I just did what I was told. Okay. So, but it was such a formative moment for me because I remember like just the power of being able to not just command the stage, but to help people to come into a space and to just be there with you and to be captivating and for folks to be captivated. And that to me was a rush that I did not realize I really got a lot from until I was a grown adult and started to speak on stages again. And it wasn't just the rush that I got, it was that I felt like I was at home. So I think that for me, that was probably like formative, like Kishshana was a little bit of clay, but then my cement edges started coming together for the bubbly personality you see today.
I love it. I love it. I love when, we can recall, first of all, those memories, because, I'm getting up there in age and my memory sometimes isn't the greatest.
Meanwhile, I done blocked all parts of my childhood out. Okay. We were there. What picture is this?
That's our trauma response.
Okay.
That's lies. Okay.
Yes.
Yes. So a couple of things you said there. I love how, one, that you remember the experience. Two, being on stage and having that aha moment for yourself. So I guess my first question is, I would love to know how that connects to who you are today and what you do today.
Yeah. I think the happiest place I am is on stage. And honestly, I remember there was a vocal coach, like a stage coach I went to probably before I met you. So probably like in 2016, 2017, when I was finally completely off on my own, doing my business full time. It was no longer part time. And she told me that she thought that maybe I shouldn't try for TV or stage, I should try for the radio. And I was so taken aback that it knocked me off my square for probably another 2 years. So maybe this was 2015. So because I started speaking for real in 2017. And I remember being like, but wait, but I really connect with others and I actually feel that way. But for whatever reason, because she was the expert at the time, I felt like, well, maybe she knows something I don't know about myself. The reality is that the first time I ever got asked to speak on stage, somebody stopped me in the hallway of a conference and said, oh my gosh, you asked the best question in this session we just had. Have you ever thought about speaking? And I was like, actually, I have, but I was told I shouldn't. And she was like, absolutely not. Get your butt on the stage. So I think for me, when I step onto a stage, it's not about me. I feel like my blood pressure lowers, my heart rate slows. I start to see and hear so many things happening in the room. And I'm able to take all of that in microseconds and then immediately know what from my talk I need to deliver. And so it started to transform from this like gratification I got because I'm on stage, right? Because, I'm a Gemini, so I want to be out in the front. But the impact that I was having when I get to share space with folks for 20 minutes to an hour, like what? So that connection of my part being the scarecrow in 5th grade is as electric all these years later when I am helping particularly women really create their own touchstone or get back to their touchstone of having the life they love and the career they love or the business they love and being healthy while doing it. Because that's what it's all about.
There's so much you said there that I want to unpack.
Sure.
One, starting with, so I think a lot of people don't give enough weight to the experiences that they had as a child that weren't traumatic, that shape how you feel about things today. Because, we often talk about our childhood wounds and our childhood traumas and how they connect to who we are today and, our trauma responses and the things that we need to heal from. But I love how you had that moment on stage as a child, you felt electric, you felt like this is, my aha moment, this is what I want to do. And it still connects to who you are today and how you feel about what you do today in terms of being on stage and that energy. And it actually makes me think of an experience so when I was probably fifth grade or so, I had a speech in front of the whole school where I froze. And that was my very first public speaking experience where I was like, I never want to do this ever again. I froze. Like, I looked at the entire school sitting there staring at me, and I couldn't open my mouth to deliver my speech. And I stood up there. It felt like forever. Could have been 30 seconds, could have been a minute. I have no idea. A teacher came and realized, okay, let me take her by the shoulders and move her out of the way. So when I got into public speaking in 2014-ish, I was like, the anxiety that I had to work through, and this is now 10 years later, where I still have to work through that anxiety before I go on stage. It feels great after, but before I go on stage. And you talked about the energy in the room, and Bob Proctor's daughter, Colleen, had said to me one time, what is it that you fear about the public speaking? And I was just like, I don't even know. And she explained to me, if we reverse the energy from, everyone looking at us and projecting it outwards in terms of what value you have to give them, what you have to offer them, how it shifts the perspective. Absolutely. And that helped shift my mindset in terms of public speaking. But I love that you had a great experience from the beginning, and that still connects to how you feel today.
I mean, it's so funny, Makini, because listen, up until that point, my parents were like, oh, make Kishshana go on the stage and go and give the speech. Say the poem. Go again, recite the poem. So I never had a problem being in front. It's just they didn't understand that I was multifaceted, you see. And so I was a kid that was like, oh, you want me to perform in front of the whole family? Let me do it for you. So that was like, they're like, oh, that's just Kishshana being Kishshana. But my mom wouldn't say that she didn't nurture it, but she was so fearful of the world of like hip hop and R&B at that time. I grew up in New York City. And so, we're from a tight Caribbean household. We grew up in a Caribbean neighborhood. I go to a Caribbean church, like the idea that she would let me go to Manhattan alone. The answer was no, like she was like, focus on your books, like they understand those things. And so I think for me, it just sort of like lay dormant. And so what ended up happening is for years and years, decades, right? So I'm in my 40s now, that folks would tell me versions of like, I'm too much. You're so much. Wow, Kishshana, that's a lot. And it would be like, not really balanced, but sort of offset sometimes with, wow, you have a lot of energy. Oh, you're so bright. Oh, you're so colorful. Oh, and I used to be like, well, is that a bad thing? Like, what? Wait a minute. And so one day, and I would love to say it was in my 20s or in my I don't give a damn 30s, but nope, I was in the middle of being a single mother then. So I really care. So probably right when we met the pandemic was when I started to go, now, wait a minute. I am a bright light. I do have a lot of energy. A lot of people do not wake up with the energy that I have, and I can do this all day. I am colorful, and it makes me happy. I am very funny because I'm here for my own personal amusement. I had to start to take those blips that I had set to myself over the years and start to make that the soundtrack of my internal, radio station. Because the only station it was tuned to was Talk to Yourself Crazy AM.
Listen, okay, again, like part of what I wanted to unpack from what you said before, but now you just added on to that, where, the stories that we tell ourselves, the self-talk, the beliefs and paradigms that we have. So when you said that woman said to you, like, you weren't meant to like be on stage, you should be, on radio, and how that set you back. And then having someone else say to you, like, girl, you need to be on stage. See, people don't realize that words are powerful. Words hold so much weight. We grew up hearing sticks and stones may break my bones, but words may never hurt me. Words hurt. They hurt. There are so many words that we have held on to that have been said to us since childhood that hurt and affect our daily routines. It affects how we view life, how we walk through the world. So I love how you've come to this place where you've taken all of those snippets and reframed it and realized that it's not a bad thing. Just because something isn't for someone else doesn't mean it's not for you. I love your energy. So I may not have, I don't even know what word to use, but I may not have I don't want to say, it may not be my characteristic or my personality, but I love it. I love being around people like yourself that are high energy. It helps lift me up. I've always been told things like, oh, you're too quiet. Oh, your voice is monotone. Oh, you're this, you're old, like all of these lower things. And if I had embraced that, I wouldn't be doing anything that I'm doing today. I wouldn't be speaking on stages. I wouldn't be coaching and facilitating, workshops. I wouldn't have this podcast because people made me feel like you're not in the right space to be using your voice. Mm-hmm. We all have a voice, and how we use it resonates different with different people. You and I could say the exact same thing and it may resonate differently with the same person, right? So there's nothing wrong with how you are or how I am. So I love that you've come to this place where you're like, let me reframe that. Let me use that as a positive, because it is a positive.
Yeah. And I think that, and it's something like I really like about myself. Like we're in my home office now. My ceiling is completely wallpapered. Most people wallpaper their walls, right? My walls are like this beautiful blue. My bookcases are hot pink. Like this, I come to my office every morning. I'm like, yeah.
Yes.
And some days I'm working by myself. I'm not talking to clients. I'm not on the road. And yet like my environment is still helping to give me that nitro boost of energy. And so I'm like, I will embrace that. That is who I am, that's a part of who I am. That's what makes me special. And yet in different areas of my life, I've had to to reteach myself. Actually, just teach myself for the first time, to unlearn and then teach myself, like, it's okay to be that way across different facets of your life. Now, mind you, you may not have to be on the same volume in every aspect of your life. Everybody does not need a water hose for every shower. Okay. That's like the one time if you have low pressure water and you go to a hotel or somebody else's house and they have high pressure. Yeah. So you deal with that thing every day. That thing is cutting you in the neck. You're trying to block it out the way. Your whole bonnet is a mess. I mean, so there's this balance that we have to try to continue to achieve. And I think that's the beauty of, for me anyway, being a lifelong learner, because I'm willing to lean in. I'm willing to be open to the possibility that I may not know the right answer in this season I'm walking in. Willing to do that work because selfishly, I have a kid who I am creating space for to be the most powerful young woman she can be. And I want to make sure that I am giving her an example of what it means to be wholly yourself.
Yes.
And I didn't have that necessarily, although my mom gave me some real good lessons, but we're in a new generation now. And so I have to be able to show up powerfully in that way. So it's nuanced, definitely.
Yeah,
nuanced.
Absolutely. I love, how you are being the example for your daughter, because I strongly believe that some things are taught and some things are caught. And as much as I try to teach my kids, they may not necessarily get those lessons from me, talking it constantly or yelling at them, but they look at my actions, they look at my behavior, they look at my patterns, they look at what I'm doing as an example. So I love that. I love that. As you were talking, I remembered an experience that I had very similar to yours, where when I got into the public speaking space and I was looking for other Black women that were in the space that I could be inspired by, because I grew up seeing, old white men in the personal development space and all that stuff. So, I'm looking at the Lisa Nichols. And so I'm trying to find the Black women to represent for me that I can, aspire to be. And there was one woman in particular who was she actually ended up going through Lisa Nichols training, but I went to a lot of her events. I would travel to the States to go see her speak. If she came to Canada, I would pay to go see her speak. And I remember paying for one of her courses for a couple of sessions. And on the last session, I was supposed to basically present, a summary of one of my talks. And that information wasn't given to me up front. She just basically asked me on the spot. So I didn't know then, about having your signature talk, which I know now, where I can, talk for an hour without needing to write anything down. But I didn't know that then. So in my mind, I was just unprepared. And she said to me, maybe speaking in the motivational space isn't best for you. Maybe you're better as an instructional facilitator. And I remember I held on to that for a while, where I didn't feel confident enough to even, put my name in the ring for certain speaking things. And I had to, like you, think about what other people have said to me when I come off stage, the impact that it had on them, how it motivated them to do more, all those things, and reframe how I was viewing, what I do so that I can still be in this space.
That's right. That's right.
People don't realize how much power their words have.
They don't. And I think, for me, I was actually pretty quiet. I remember during the pandemic, there was so many voices that started to come to the table around equity, around women's issues, around Black women's issues globally. I decided to take up space in support of that work, but I didn't have an opinion. And I was like, well, why don't I have an opinion? And it took me years to figure out what it really was. And it was that I didn't actually feel that way. It felt like, I don't know what else we're supposed to expect. This is supposed to be this is going to be a blip. So how do I prepare for after the blip?
Right.
And if I don't have something to say that to me will move the needle, I don't want to just be putting noise out in writing, putting noise out in videos. That's what it felt like to me.
Yes.
And so when I started to figure out, okay, like what is my message going to be? What am I most confident in my ability to be able to help folks who step into space with me seeing themselves? And that was the ability and the belief to decide. And to me, that has always felt like the hardest thing. My boyfriend was teasing me this morning about, he was like, we got to work on your discipline. And I said, it all left me after I pledged. I just want you to know, just 25 years ago, I let it go. It's real hard. So just help me with that, sir. But you've got to be able to try to capture some of this stuff back. And I think that for many of us, depending on where you are in your season of life, whether you're like, wow, what do I want to do with myself in my career? You're like, these damn kids. Or you're like, oh, I'm a caretaker too. And you're like, the last time I walked outside and moved my body was. Whatever your it is, somebody's voice that talked to us crazy that one time, for whatever reason, is the conveyor belt of voices that we hear in perfect harmony. And to me, what I want to see more of in our space, and I know you do this, and I've seen some other women who I'm feeling really excited about, is how to just turn that noise down for real. And it might be a little tough love, okay? We're not going to motivate our way out of everything, y'all. Sometimes you just got to put on your latex gloves, or no latex if you're like me, I'm allergic, and you got to get the workout, okay? And I think that for me, turning that advice into in on myself has been some of my toughest work.
Yes. Let's get into that because, I got goosebumps. Because I feel like this is the area where I have always been strong in terms of the outside world, but learning to set boundaries and to do the heavy work inside my home is now where I'm at. And it's not easy. So let's talk about setting boundaries. Let's start there.
Sure.
Let's talk about the boundaries, because as when you're running a business and you have kids and, we're trying to find some balance in life. We will have those, especially family, that don't understand the boundaries, that have a problem with the boundaries. Let's talk about, for you, what that journey has been like in terms of setting that up for yourself and what type of boundaries you've had to implement.
Yeah. So for me, it was language, right? So first, the boundaries are an invitation on how people get to be in space with you. And many of us treat boundaries as gates. And so I think for me, I still struggle with that, right? Like I know intellectually what is the right thing, but in moment, if I have to remind you for the fourth time, please don't say or do X, because then I will have to elect to do Y.
Mm-hmm.
By the time I get to that fourth time, I'm gonna cuss you out.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then it goes from boundaries to rules. You better not if you do this, then. And I was talking to a friend a few months ago who has a lot of boundaries, but actually there are a lot of rules, right? Ways that you cannot engage, not ways you can engage.
Mm-hmm.
And so to me, that was something that I had to really get clear myself. And I realized I didn't grow up in a family with a lot of boundaries. I literally, like, our large family motto is like, he who talks the loudest wins. And so there are no boundaries when people are shouting over you and, just bring the thing there, even if you don't want it. Eat food even if you're full, take the things out your closet, even though they didn't pay for it, tell you how to run your finances, even though they don't pay for nothing. Like, and the list goes on and on and on and on. And so to me, it was very hard to recognize how to create space for myself to say, this is really how I'm going to engage with people and things in the world, because I was not honoring my own boundaries. I didn't have any. I didn't have any. My people pleasing was on 1,000. My boundaries were on 0. And so at first it swung really heavily the other way to rules. Now it swung back. And I think what's happening is that people are experiencing me in this new book of my life, because I moved to a new city. My kid has gone to college. Like, I'm in a relationship for the first time in years. Like, things are different. Okay. Yeah. They're experiencing me as a whole new person, when actually the me that has been inside, like, if you don't let me out this is on the front, like, well, we are in charge now. Yeah. And so I now am having to, like, calibrate on what's the invitation and what's the rule. And to be clear, it's okay to have both. But I think that oftentimes, because there's so much Instagram psychology around boundaries and not looking at actual experts who can talk through what boundaries really are and are not, our lexicon has expanded to include the word, but not to understand the context or where and when it should be applied. And I was not immune to any of that stuff. So I used to bristle. Yeah. How dare you say that on the weekends you're with your family and so you're not picking up the phone? What if I need something? That's a boundary. Like, hey, if you call me on the weekend, call if you want, but I'm probably not going to pick up because I'm with my family. You get me Monday to Friday, right? Like, that's an actually pretty clear boundary. It's an invitation. Do if you need to. And if it's an SOS, I'm going to call you back. But just be clear, the probability is pretty high. I will not be picking up the phone.
Yes.
And so understanding that and understanding that it's not personal, like, it's not an affront to who I am, was my first step. Now is getting others to understand it's not an affront to them either, Lord.
Well, I strongly believe that anyone who has a problem with my boundaries are the reason I need them in the first place. I have family members that push and push and push. And just like you, growing up, Caribbean household, a lot of belief systems, there is no boundaries. So you become a people pleaser. And especially if you have a parent where it's like, I don't care what you think or feel. I said, do such and such and such. So even in my late 30s, I can think of, situations where I'm like, I'm not feeling well. I'm not coming to the family gathering. Just cook the rice and come. What part of I am not coming, I am not feeling well, did you not hear?
Yeah, they didn't hear you. They heard this. Look, how about shots of white from uncome? Like, they don't care about the illness. Nobody said, you want me to make you some soup? Because that would have been the appropriate response. Let me bring you something, and I will make the rice.
That part. And at the moment when I said that, it wasn't even in terms of like being ill where I was sick. I was emotionally going through something. Like, my ex had just ghosted me, packed all his stuff, moved out of my house when I wasn't home. I was too ashamed to even express that to my family, but I'm in my bed under my blankets, sobbing, saying there's no way I can face my entire judgmental family right now.
Because you wouldn't lie when you got there. You couldn't. Somebody's going to see something on your face and you're going to be like, you know what I mean? Like, and then the judgment ensues. And they will mean, and they'll say things like, No, I'm just trying to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
Still feels like a sharp sword, just saying.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
like
yeah.
peeing on the wound. That part. But like coming from a family where we didn't feel like we didn't have those boundaries and learning at this age to set them and put them in place. I know for me that's been a challenge.
Yeah.
Not even just internally, because it's hard for me to tell my kids no. I'm trying to teach them examples of what healthy boundaries look like. But my middle daughter, the one who has my grandchild, like she called, I don't know, 4 times in one day. And each time I said no. And normally I would say yes. So there was like that guilt inside, like, oh, that it hurt to say no. I don't want her to have to struggle. I don't want her to, any of those things. So it hurt me to say no. But then on the flip side, where like you said, if you set a clear boundary about not answering your phone on the weekend, and someone may feel like, oh, like, how dare you? How dare you not be available to me? And I had to learn that their emergency is not my emergency.
Yeah.
So since the pandemic, since that previous breakup, my phone has been on do not disturb 24/7. The only calls that come through are my children's, my man, and my father.
Yeah. Oh, I get those voicemail. I'll be looking at it like,
yeah, straight to voicemail.
I'm just like, what do I want to say? And oftentimes, Makini, for me, is that I just don't have words. I'm on video with clients. I'm on the phone with my team. I'm on Slack. I'm writing. I'm doing voice notes. I'm doing video. I am out of words. And honestly, I'm a little bored right now. Just to say, I'm not going out to do all my interests in my hobbies because I'm focused on finishing my book. Like, there's just things that are happening that are precluding me from being an interesting person.
You may just not have the capacity right now. Like you said, you're doing all these things. Your plate is full. And it's hard to have compassion and empathy for someone when you are at full capacity, because you're like, I don't have the headspace for this. So then when we're not as kind or as empathetic as they're expecting us to be, or we usually would be, then all of a sudden it's, what's wrong with you? You're this, you're that. So setting that boundary of not being so accessible, or letting you know when I can call you back or when I'm available, is when I have the capacity to take on your emotional baggage. You know what I mean?
And I've done that. So that's where this boundary stuff has been very fascinating for me, because I've said, y'all, everybody knows my schedule. Who knows me well? I wake up at the same time in the morning to do devotion and workout. I do not start checking client calls and emails until 9:30 in the morning. So if you call me between 7:30 and 9:30, the probability is very high I will pick up the phone. So when you call me at 3, I said, that's the window.
Yeah.
Now, I understand if you're an early riser, and granted, if there's an emergency or something, or something is really dire out, I will figure it out. I'm typically not available, but I'll be like, hey, let me call you back in X.
Yeah.
But the number of times that I've had to say that, and folks have been like, oh my God, that's the only time, I'm not an early riser. I don't know what to tell you.
Like, like, I don't want to use the word rules because you just explained that, but it's like the rules of engagement to be in my space is.
Right. If you want me at high energy, totally focused, totally dialed in, after a workout, I'm tired, but I'm relaxed. I'm getting myself together. I'm putting on my little lipstick and stuff and doing my skin routine. I am relaxed, which means I am paying attention.
Yeah.
And so getting me when I'm between meetings and phone calls and like, I am my most distracted. I don't want to give you that kind of energy. Times every area of my life. So I think it's a working process.
So now that you are in this space, what advice would you give your younger self?
Yes.
In terms of boundaries?
I'm trying with my kid. So my younger self is 8 at this moment because I look like I spit her out. So what I said was, first, you've got to know yourself before you can allow others to decide how they know you. And I'm just giving you advice. Take it or leave it, right? Like, I know that we've had an instructional relationship for a long time because I was trying to get a foundation to do all the basics as a woman and be independent on your own. Also, learn yourself. And it's everything from pleasure to food, to what drives you, to what motivates you, to what you hate. Because if you don't start to learn yourself across all those different facets, how will you know where your boundaries are?
Yes. Yes.
You know, I think I would have told myself that everybody doesn't deserve your energy. In college, I was a whirling dervish. I was everywhere, doing everything, in charge of everything. And it wasn't until I was out of grad school, about 22, 23, when I realized I am depressed. I like people. Like, I just had, it was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. So I would tell my younger self, when you felt that feeling 2 years prior, that was your opportunity to pause. And say, I just want to go to Jamaica to visit your grandmother. Like, I mean, like, there was so many places I could have just asked for help.
Right.
And I know that asking for help was not a sign of weakness. It was a sign of recognizing that you needed to recharge.
Yes. Yeah.
You know? So I think that those to me are the two things. I would go back and I would say, learn yourself, like really learn yourself. Doesn't mean you have to disconnect from the whole world, but you have to pay attention to your body. It is telling you what you needed to know, what it needs you to know. And then take that, ask for that help, you know?
Yeah. I strongly believe that asking for help allows us to remain strong. You know, we've been conditioned that asking for help, you know, is a weakness, but we're wired for connection. We don't have to do anything alone. Even if we are in business for ourselves, we're not in business by ourselves. We still, you know, collaborate and co-create experiences with other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. Love it. Okay. So what is, I guess, one misconception that people have about you?
Oh, that my life is perfect. Oh my God. Or, and maybe perfect is not the right word, that my life is charmed. Because they see the fact that I, you know, like fancy things. No clue how I got it. Okay. They see the fact that I did this with my house. I do this with my kid. I'm traveling around the world here and there. No clue about what I'm sacrificing in order to be available in those ways. No questions about how I'm actually really doing or even offering to help with those things. I think that because people see like, oh, if I have your home address sometime during the year that is not Christmas, you will get a card from me. Because I'm just like that. Every quarter I pick a batch of my friends and I'm like, a little sunshine in your mailbox. It makes me happy, right? I don't expect that in return, but it's fascinating that at the point that I articulate that I am in a place where one would think a flower, a card, a chocolate might brighten my day, a coffee. Not going to advertise what they are, but you know what I'm saying? Like that would brighten my day, and then crickets. So I think there's this idea that I am so self-contained and have it so much together that I don't need anything or don't want anything, even when I say I need and want a thing. I think that part has been very, very hard for me to navigate. You know, a good quick example is my business has taken a really big shift, just like lots of entrepreneurs. I had a offline business with an online presence, and somewhere along the line, it started to feel like I was an online entrepreneur, and I wasn't. And so a big contract that I had ended early, and I did a rookie mistake, even though I'm not a rookie, and I did not have stuff in pipeline in the way to replace that immediately. And so things took a turn. I felt embarrassed to say, hey, I'm gonna need some referrals because, you know, the way that my staffing is set up. Instead, I shifted the messaging to shift that urgency onto what people were needing so that I could magically bring these clients in. Foolish. But because there's this idea that I am in this bastion of success, I didn't want to burst that bubble. And also I felt worried, like if I say that actually I'm not that successful right now, well, people go, well, she's not a winner, so I don't want to, I don't want to book her. Because she's not winning.
Yeah.
That is definitely, and has definitely been a challenge.
Whew, girl, I got goosebumps. So I can completely relate 1000%. And I think it's frustrating that people have this perception that because of the snippets that you share with them, that you don't have any struggles. Life is not without struggles. None of us. None of us are getting out of here alive. Okay.
Like, okay. None of us are getting out of here alive. Right.
I recorded an episode recently. It's not out yet, but the woman, she is also in the leadership space. She's in ministry. She's, spent years doing big things.
Mm-hmm.
And she is presently going through a depression. And she's taken herself offline and decided that she wanted to use the podcast as an opportunity to talk about, how nobody checks on you. Everyone just assumes that everything is great and that you need nothing. And all the people that you have shown love to, you're like, where is everybody? It makes you start to wonder, like, do they even value you? Do they need you beyond what it is, for their selfish need in that moment?
Yeah.
And it's challenging when you are, I guess, when you're building something and you've had some success in it and you get to that point where you do need the help, you do need referrals, you do need shoulders to lean on, you do need all these things. And you feel like, oh, I can't even, because you guys have this perception of me and you're going to think like, she'll figure it out, or, whatever perception they may have. And it's so disheartening because we're human beings. We're people. We have feelings too. We have problems too. We have all the same things you got. We just have a toolbox that we reach into
to be able to, right. Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that more women are saying, hey, it's an and, not an or.
Yeah.
I can share this powerful message and shift the room and also experiencing a point of pain or a point of transition that feels like it's going to swallow me whole.
Yeah.
Right. That we do have the capacity to hold those things, but we're not immune from those things because we understand how to shift other people, which is why we have to surround ourselves with folks who can complement us in our work, because we would hope that the lazy Susan would just go evenly so we can just keep each other lifted as we go through the different seasons of our life, particularly if you are in the business of helping others.
Yes, particularly if you're in the business of helping others. I agree 1000%. I remember when I had my season where I definitely needed help. I was coming out of processing what I explained to that situation earlier. And the women that I did reach out to, they were shocked that I was running so much of my business on my own, but they were not helpful in terms of a solution or support. Right. And I ended up having to reach out to a woman outside of my network who is in the business of serving others, that I could have a safe space and a conversation with to openly talk about, okay, yes, I am great at helping others. Right now, I can't help myself. What do I do? It's sad that the people that are in, and I want to say in my community, because I'm definitely speaking about all the Black women that I reached out to. And I'm not knocking anyone. I'm not resentful, because I understand that everyone has their own capacity. They could have been dealing with stuff and not wanting to be open in that moment, or, whatever they have in their head, whether they helped someone before and it didn't work out. I get it. Everybody's got something. I'm a very understanding person, but it at the time felt very, very hurtful. But I'm grateful that there was still someone in the space of service that was doing big things, that's still doing big things, that was able to provide a safe space for me to be vulnerable in that moment, to get the support that I needed, in addition to, now being in therapy every week.
Okay. How can we do it, our therapist? All the shenanigans of chicanery.
Girl. I had to make sure I found a therapist who was a woman of color, because I needed to ensure that in terms of experiences and understanding, that was there, and I didn't have to waste time explaining things I shouldn't have to explain.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it's definitely important for us to be able to do that, to find folks who we're simpatico with. I moved to a new city, so now I am in the process of looking for a new therapist. And it has been very fascinating. But now that I did not really think about whether it's another Black woman or woman of color, now I got to think about, so do we even vibe? Is your theory of change what I really understand? Is your therapeutic practice alongside where I need to be right now? Or are you doing same old, same old?
Yeah.
So, it's always having to be aware. And I think what that teaches us is that we have to be paying attention. You've got to be present in your own life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a big point that you said there. It's very important to interview multiple therapists to see if it's someone that you connect with, because it doesn't make sense trying to go to someone to support your healing journey when they're irritating the crap out of you or where you feel like they don't get me. You feel misunderstood, right?
Yep. Cannot do that. That's an absolute no. At the time.
Exactly. Okay. So I would love if you could tell the people where they could stay connected with you, where they can learn more from you and about you.
Absolutely. So if you want to follow my book writing journey and publication journey, fashion, home, raising this college student, because Lord, baby, Jesus in the manger, at Kishshana Palmer on all socials, but on Instagram is typically where I'll talk about that kind of stuff. And then TikTok and LinkedIn, I try to keep it a little bit more professional around things that I'm learning in the personal development, leadership, and wellness space. You can visit me at KishshanaPalmer.com. if you're interested in learning more about how we might work together or just stay connected to the world that I'm in, because I'd like to stay connected to you. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. I will definitely have all your details in the details section below the episode so they don't have to search too far. Normally we have like the end segment. But I feel like instead of doing like a rapid fire, there's just one question that I would like to ask.
Of course.
And that question is, what advice would you give your future self?
Ooh, girl. Drop down and get your eagle on. That's it. It's in my gym at home. I've had it for a long time. It's a neon sign. It's my favorite expression. That is inhalation, Mary J. Blige. But I would say, continue to seize the day. Continue to live life fully. To my future self, I would say, listen, if this is going to be your last lap, girl, sprint that thing. So that you just really are just full throttle in every area of your life. I love that you said nobody's going to make it out of here alive. And so I want my future self to know, I worked my buns off to get her to that place where she can drop down and get her eagle on. And if y'all know what song that is, look up Nelly, Spread Your Wings. Okay. We don't get paid for that though. I just want you to know. But it definitely will help you understand why I love it so much.
I love it. I love it. That is great advice. Thank you so much, Kishshana, for having me. Your energy, for your transparency. It's always a barrel of laughs. I love connecting with you. So just know that I am here if ever you need a safe space.
You are. I know I get your cell phone number, so listen.
You got it. Listen, there are very few people on this planet that have my cell phone
number. I know.
You got it. I love it. And to all you healers out there, until next time, subscribe on all platforms. Don't forget to rate the show and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. And I just want to thank each and every one of you that continues to listen each week to help the show rank globally in the top 1.5% of most popular shows out there. And there's well over 3 million shows. So I am beyond grateful. I'm going to challenge you to share this episode with 2 of your closest girlfriends. They need to hear Kishshana's story and her gems so that they can take from it what they need. And if you want to screenshot this week's episode with your aha moments, you can tag Kishshana at Kishshana Palmer, KISHSHANAPALMER. And you can tag myself at The Real Makini Smith. A healthy community is a healing community, and a healing community is full of hope because it has seen its own people weather, survive, and thrive. So let's continue to heal her.